Oh, so nearby, Brad and Nisha. Have you got any embarrassing stories from your childhood you'd like to share? Tough.
So many to choose from.
Yes.
Clearly.
So in this episode of Fact Fiend Focus, we're focusing on our pasts. So I've told many a story from my childhood in the videos before, and Brad had the idea to see if there's any more that we've not talked about, because people want to learn more about us as people, I imagine. And I can't remember what stories I've actually told on the channel and which ones I haven't. So Brad, any of the stories I've told on the channel that you remember, so I don't repeat myself?
You know what? I won't remember until you start.
Okay then.
So I mean, you can either have me cut you off and we can direct build the videos, or you can finish the story and I'll say I knew that.
I knew that. Okay, fair enough. Your idea was what, Brad, specifically?
So obviously when you're a kid, you're always trying to find a way to amuse yourself.
Of course, yes.
So I'm thinking either games or activities or things that you used to do as a kid, where you think back to it now and go, why did I do that?
The one for me, and I think everyone knows this, is the story I always tell, is when we would throw rocks at trains. I grew up in a very deprived area, to put it diplomatically, of the UK called Pontefract. Here's a lovely photo of Pontefract on a council estate that was 40 feet away from a train line. And just every day trains would go past and they'd wake you up and they'd rattle the house. And all me and my brothers would do is we'd stand next to the train tracks, and as trains went past, just throw rocks at the trains. The best moments of my childhood is just when one went past carrying military vehicles, and just every kid on my estate descended from their house with bricks in their hand, just throwing them at these fucking tanks and APCs, and it was great.
So I used to hang out with, it was my little sister and then my neighbour and her little brother. We had a little group we would hang out with. And our toys of choice for this summer were underlay, carpet underlay, and a fridge freezer.
That's not bad.
This was the summer where I dropped the fridge freezer on my foot.
Oh yeah.
Because I was the only one strong enough to move it, and it'd been raining, and I was stupid and picked it up when it had been raining.
See, that's a bad thing. Me living next to the train tracks, and there was a lot of fly tipping. And you see, again, you look back at now, why the fuck did we do that? So people would fly tip all sorts of nonsense, like fridges, TVs, stereos. Sometimes it'd be a burned out car there every now and again, because people would joyride parking next to a train track and burn it. That's an entire afternoon right there, throwing rocks at the burned out car. But one of the things that we would learn to do is break open TVs and speakers to get the giant magnets out of them. And we would throw those giant magnets at trains. Just everything.
Why does all your stories end with, and it was thrown at a train?
I'll say, if you got woken up every single morning at 6 a.m. by a fucking train, every morning for your entirety of your childhood, you'd learn to hate trains as well. And my brother was always way better at throwing stones than me, and he could hit the factory that was over the train tracks.
Well, that's not the objective, though. I thought you was meant to hit the train.
Well, sometimes we just throw stones, see how far we could throw them. And my brother was always way better at that than me. And Nisha just sat there I have no...
I don't have stories like that, I don't think. I can think of things I used to do, but I wouldn't think they were...
Sensible child who didn't throw rocks at trains.
Used to go around, used to go down the canal on my bike. And my friends were those kind of people who would just say things and freak me out. So I remember we were walking down the canal once, and they were just in a guy with a gun. So I'd shit myself, fuck! And I remember once we went over the train tracks, and I was so scared that I never went back. I'm one of those people, I was just too scared to do anything.
There was a reveal where it turns out you two grew up in the same place. I went over the train tracks, got hit by a rock, never went back.
Because they had to keep bringing people into school to tell the kids don't go on the train tracks. Don't go on the train tracks, it's really dangerous. We don't care if it's a shortcut to get to town, don't go. And that's when my friends realised, oh yeah, we can get to town in 5 minutes instead of half an hour if we cut across the train tracks. Sick. And then they put up a fence to stop kids getting over the train tracks. But then drug dealers and drug addicts put a mattress over the bars, so we climb over the mattress to get onto the train tracks.
That's something that's just reminded me of something that me and one of my friends used to do. Was I don't know if any of you guys remember American Adventure.
No.
It was a theme park. It was Native American themed. Cowboys and Indians sort of theme park, and I think it shut down in 2007. And literally it was half an hour walk from where I used to live. I think in 2008, 2009, me and one of my friends used to go every Sunday. We used to walk through the woods, and it was in winter, so it was always really dark. We used to walk through the woods to where American Adventure used to be, and used to go through the fence, because it's a massive hole in the fence.
Of course, Lord, yes.
And look at the remains of the theme park.
Sneaking through.
And it was really... again, it freaked me out. I got freaked out so easily, but it was really fun.
One of the things we used to play as kids was War. I guess you must have played War as a kid, Brad, like as a young boy.
Define war.
Just when you'd start like a war with the people on your estates, we'd have a war, and it'd be at first it was like stick wars. So what we'd do is have an entire day. We'd go to a nature reserve nearby and get as many sticks as we could. And I was always the one who was like, Karl, we need you to make weapons. And we'd make weapons. And I remember once it started to get a bit dangerous because one of the kids managed to get into his dad's garage and started putting nails through his sticks. And we had to come with it don't do that. That's not allowed. You're allowed a stick, and then one kid managed to get. It wasn't a stick. It was the remains of a tree, and it had the big club on the bottom of it.
So one kid just turns up with Lucille.
Basically, yeah. And we had the stick wars, and I remember it was my younger brother basically invented chemical warfare because he was young enough where he wasn't scared of dog poo. So what he'd do is he'd walk up and he'd pick up the dog poo and he'd throw that, and it's that's how he won the stick wars.
We did have quite different childhoods.
Did you not? I think I remember telling this story. I was visiting my girlfriend, and I told it as if it was a normal story of yeah. We used to get sticks and put poo on the end of the sticks and javelin them at each other's houses. And my girlfriend's like, the fuck did you grow up? I'm like, didn't everyone do this when they were a kid? I'm like, no one javelin poo sticks at each other's houses.
It's definitely just you.
Okay. Well, everyone who grew up on my estate as well.
I used to have, water balloon fights or pretend to be an animal.
We didn't have water balloons, but I remember we tried to have water gun fights.
These just piss balloons.
No, we couldn't afford one.
People.
But me and my brother had one water gun that we shared, and it was a super soaked. Do you remember the big purple one? And that was it was the AK-47 of the water gun world, but it leaked. So it only worked for about 5
It's friendly fire. Every time you fire it, you get soaked.
Yeah, but what we'd do is we'd get our dad to help us. Jokes you pump it, it's you can't do it anymore. We would get our dad to give it the extra 10 pumps after its limit, and you press in basically 2 litres of water in 1 second. I'm pretty sure one kid nearly lost an eye because we got him right in the.
Oh my god!
Do you ever have that one kid who came a water pistol fight with a kettle?
No, we didn't have that one. We did. Once we went to Aldi round the corner and got 19p lemonade and filled up our water guns with the lemonade.
Oh.
That was a good, especially on a hot day when the wasps start turning up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, on a hot day I used to fill my water pistol with hot water just because it was funnier. Because everyone's like, well, at least if we get wet, we get to cool down.
Yeah.
Not with me. Back to pointless games we used to play as a kid. So when I was in junior school, so between the ages of 6 and 11 is it? What we used to do was, in order to entertain ourselves during our breaks, we would go to the library and we would spend 50p on a rubber.
Okay.
And the game was that somebody had to kick the rubber into the air, and whoever caught it got a point.
That's not bad.
That was it.
That's not bad.
I always remember one time when I can't remember if I caught it or not, but I swung my neck around to sort of follow the path of this rubber, and I pulled a muscle in my neck. And for the next 2 or 3 days, I couldn't turn my head to the right. So,
an extreme game.
It was dangerous, I tell you. But when I say I couldn't turn it to the right, I mean that my head was stuck facing left.
So the thing is, the number of the games we played as kids were more just excuses to kick the shit out of each other. I remember we played Murder in the Dark. You ever play Murder in the Dark?
Let me guess. You turn the lights off and beat each other up.
Yes. But you've got to pick up. You're not allowed to use pillows. But I remember one year. A mate of mine just
kid with his nail board came back.
No, he used Lynx Africa. So he just went Murder in the Dark, turned his lights off, and just sprayed Lynx Africa directly in everyone's face. And it's just you think after 10 seconds he didn't stop. He used the entire can and just I felt like I've been tear
And
gassed.
the chemical warfare returns.
Yes, like I've been tear gassed.
What was your childhood?
I've definitely I remember I must have been 4 or 5 or something. My cousin came round and we were playing with the Barbie dolls, and I had Esmeralda from Hunchback of Notre Dame. She was my favourite doll, and my cousin wouldn't let me play with her, so I snatched it, and I remember I whacked her. I always remember.
That's what we used to do with the thing is, there's some of my action men behind you now, and one of the things that me and my brother used to do with our action men is we'd just throw them into a tree until they got stuck, and then throw other things into the tree to get them out. And that was just a game. We'd play that all afternoon, intentionally get the action man stuck in the tree, and then just throw, go on a rescue mission to get him back out of the tree. The action man that had the parachute, and I dropped it out my second, Christmas Day, Had it for 30 seconds. Oh, I'm going to drop this out of my bedroom window. Fell down, breaks his leg instantly. The Action Man's leg fell off. That was one we used to do as well, like throwing Action Men at each other. Because we figured out if you held it by its leg and like spun it, Action Man would like starfish, like Nico when he gets hit by a car in GTA, and you could like take someone's like eye out with it. It's like something. So many of the games I play were just excuses to like hurt my friends. Like the one we do is like if you get a football, stand 3 foot in front of a wall and then boot the ball as hard as you can into the wall. And like anyone who turns around, like if you run away from it, then like you lose.
Did you ever do Rosie?
Is that the one where you got like link arms and run at each other?
No, Rosie's the football one where you have to stand on the line bent over and everyone has to shoot kick at your ass.
Oh no, we didn't do that. We did play like Bulldog though.
Like British Bulldog.
British Bulldog, yeah, where it's just all Red Rover for 2 Americans. Where it's just you link arms and just try and tackle your way through. A game that we all played, it was TIG. Did you call it TIG or do you call it
tag?
You call it tag. Okay, we call it TIG.
TIG, yeah.
And what were your variations of TIG? Because everyone always had their own like in-house rules for TIG. And we had hospital TIG. And that's the one where whatever part of the body you TIG, they have to pretend is injured. So obviously you immediately just get everyone on the
Oh,
face.
of course, your version had fake injuries. Our version never had
Well, is
that.
that if you TIG them 3 times, you
It's
can't
not a
hold.
fun game if people aren't hurt, is it, Carl?
We've got to TIG them 3 times. So you'd always just go for people's face and they'd be running around like this and go straight into fucking walls.
Have you ever broken a bone?
No, I've never broken a bone. Ever.
Broken other people's, though, you know.
No.
During these...
The only person in my family who broke a bone was my older brother because he fell out of a conker tree. Because the only place you get conkers in Pontefract was in a graveyard and he fell onto a gravestone.
Oh!
Yeah, and he shattered his arm in like 3 places. He'd land like elbow first on a gravestone. Yeah.
What's a grave occurrence?
Yes. But the one that I'm always surprised that I didn't die is, do you know the things you do when you look back and you go, why did I do that? And we had a penny floater. You know the penny floater, the little tiny like plaggy footballs you get from the beach?
Yeah, yeah.
One of those. And I tried to break it in half with a house brick, and I threw a house brick at it, it bounced off and twatted me in the eye.
It's one of the games we used to play in my school was that if you ever found a coin on the floor, you had to lob it across the playground and just... And I remember once I got hit in the bridge of my nose by one of these coins, like literally an inch either side, and I'd have lost an eye.
Yeah, I'm genuinely surprised I'm not like more permanently injured. I've like I said, never broke a bone, never dislocated anything.
When I was in college, they had a tennis court outside, but for some reason it was covered in what was almost like gravel. So we used to play football out there, and because there were so
Slide
many
tackle
little
on it,
rocks, yeah, we would fall over constantly, and almost every single day somebody would turn up at the nurse's office with little rocks embedded in
Yeah.
the palms of their hands or their knees.
We'd have that, yeah.
Yeah.
Try to slide tackle on concrete wearing tracky bottoms.
I was always that person who got the football accidentally kicked to the head. Just walking I'd just be walking past, and like there'll be like a group of lads playing football, and I'd always get it in the face. So
Yeah.
every time
Sounds to me like they were aiming for you.
Yeah.
every time I'm like near a group of people that play football, I'm always like this.
Yeah.
Literally, it's just instinct to flinch.
The worst one of them for me is when we were playing, like, I think it was rounders, or like softball, on the school field. And for some reason, they decided to give all the kids aluminum bats. And one kid had an aluminum bat, and he swung and he hit it, and he just threw it backwards, straight away, and it bounced on the floor and twatted me in both my ankles at once. And I legitimately don't know how I'm still walking today because, when you're a kid and you're embarrassed, you don't want to tell them that you're injured. My ankle went black. And do you know your ankle bone? That wasn't there anymore. I think it knocked my ankle bone in or shattered it or something like that. But I never went to the hospital because I was too embarrassed to say that I could and just hobbled around for 3 weeks with like my ankle being jet black and never told my parents.
You don't realise how, because when you're younger and you bounce back so quickly, you don't think until you're older, that was serious.
Yeah, that was, that's the thing.
It could have been a really big
It could have been a huge problem. It's like when I got bitten by the dog on this arm here.
Yeah.
Well, I still don't have full mobility in this arm. There's nothing I could have done about it. I did go to the hospital, but the dog ripped out part of my tendon, so now my hand doesn't work properly.
I twisted my ankle so much as a kid that now, if I spend more than 4 or 5 hours stood still on my ankle, it hurts the next morning. And it's just, you're not really sure when it happened.
Yeah.
But clearly, I injured myself and just carried on doing what I was doing.
Well, that's the important thing, though. I did injure myself throwing rocks or sticks.
I think one of the major injuries I had when I was younger, where I had to go to hospital,
Okay.
was my grandparents used to have a sliding door to the conservatory.
As you run into it.
No, I was
Did
just
you
walking on it. I was just walking back. I don't know
What?
what I was doing. I was walking on it, and I slipped.
On the door?
Because it was like a metal bit at the bottom,
Oh,
where the
oh.
slides. And I fell onto, my knee fell onto the slidey bit. And it
That's a rough one.
Cut it right open.
The one that happened with me with that is the dog bite one. The one I tell is the dog bit me, ripped a big chunk out of me out, immediately blood. But you're a kid, and I didn't want to like. I remember like the guy asking, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes," and then ran off to my friend's house, and his mum saw blood pointing. Oh, I'll clean it up for you. Puts it under the cold tap. Exposed nerves. Cold tap. Yeah, and that was just like, you know, just one of those things I think I whited out. And then I just like, do you want me to drive you home? So it's like, no, I'll walk. So I walked home with a towel on my, I'll get home to my mum. And I was thinking, when you're a kid, you think you're in trouble. I thought I'd be in trouble for getting injured.
I don't
So I
understand.
tried to hide it.
Oh.
You know, so again, it's things you do as a kid, isn't it? Like, I didn't have, like, you know, the confidence to say I was injured. And I remember I got to the hospital and they take it out and it's like, you know, they have to sit there and we've got to remove all the ruined flesh. It was not a pleasant experience, but, you know, that's the only time I got injured. It was no fault of my own, just some guy's dog bit me.
Let's bring the mood back up.
Okay. The thing is, that's like, for me, it's just like, you know, it's a funny story from my childhood now. So if I couldn't tell it and laugh about it.
What was the silliest thing a friend of yours did when you were younger?
Oh, all sorts. I can't remember off the top, but there was so fucking much that like people did. Like, I remember once, just like there was a kid at school, he climbed onto the roof of the school and then couldn't get down. So they brought his mum in. And while he's like, you know, we were all there.
Why was she? Because she fly?
No, she would just, because he refused to come down, so they called his mum and his mum yelled at him to come down and he did. While he was up there and before like the teachers turned up, we also threw apples at him.
Yeah.
Just throwing
Throwing,
Just throwing apples at him. Because he was like basically lying on the side of the roof, like, I'm not coming down. So we started throwing apples at him to try and get him back down. Just Nisha's been sat for this like the last 25 minutes, like, what is your life?
There's a scale. There's like Nisha, normal childhood, few funny stories. There's me, occasional bit of nonsense. And then there's whatever you grew up with. Throwing rocks and chucking action men and falling out of trees. Poo sticks. Poo stick javelins.
The thing is though, I remember like, another game we played when we pretended to be ninjas. We dress up in all black at night and we put scarves over our face.
And get hit by cars.
No,
good one.
We go garden hopping. But what we do is we go garden hopping dressed like ninjas, but then what we'd do is we'd attack people's houses. And I remember figuring out if you got a bit of drain pipe, and if you put the drain pipe in wet mud and pulled it out, it'd turn into like a little mortar where you could throw like a little clump of mud and it sticks people's windows. So what we'd do is we'd like, you know, sneak into people's gardens, like stick things to their windows and then run away.
So you used to dress in all black and raid people's gardens?
Yes.
What the fuck?
If you were in America, you'd have been shot.
That's why we pretend to be ninjas.
It's like, all I'm doing now is trying to think of my own stories, and they're just nowhere near, like, once I went into a field I wasn't meant to go in.
Oh, we used to do that.
Like, that's a bulk of, like, I fed a horse and it said don't feed the horse.
Yeah, we used to play Oddish Wars where we dug trenches in a farmer's field like 20 foot apart, and we'd rip up like the young flowers and then throw them. And then one day we had to start doing that, so we walked past the farmer's field and his tractor was upside down. Because we dug like 6 foot trenches either side so we could throw like clumps of mud at each other.
You got 30 seconds left. Apologise to that farmer.
I would, but he'd always chase us when we tried to nick his apples.
It's like Lord of the Rings. In Farmer Maggot's crops again.
That's the thing, you know, I feel bad about it now, but it was, you know, it was funny at the time.